before the pairings came out and gave it to me, and it was like, "You're judging. I'm sorry."
I'm sorry.
So where's the food? Like last round, y'all got like every ounce of food you possibly get your hands on.
I finished it.
Damn. So,
I think we both have it.
Okay.
I haven't even looked for the document yet.
Take your time.
Opening the doc.
You guys fly back today or tomorrow?
Today. You too?
We drove here to Chicago.
Right.
Okay, I have the doc. I have a flow. I'm good to go.
Sounds good. Everyone else good? Contention on sustainability, warming exacerbates every conflict that makes nuclear war inevitable. Creates opportunity runaway warming, menaces such trigger, fuels trigger, surge warming is affected survival of species, billions without conflict, instability, hunger, shortage, disease, disputes, resources, and disasters, nuclear war is possible, warming extinction. Agriculture is unsustainable and food insecurity is skyrocketing. Earthquakes, the global food system not delivering food. Suboptimal diet should large contributors to mortality, 2 billion experience and security system to stop produce diversity of poisoning for healthy diets. 50 crops produce 90% intake that system generates a third of THC, 70% of water withdrawals recorded of acidification and sensitive performing drives erosion, nutrient depletion, loss of harm, these impacts. Reduce productivity that exacerbate unsustainable practice by creating dependence on chemicals, cropping intensity, expansion, deforestation, shortage, transmission, and hunger, while risk environmental damage. Food scarcity caused new war, World War II, and Ukraine grew. Cryptic food scarcity, apartment charges, and 2/3 of modern conflicts were to Soviet and Ukraine food was among main enemies, hunger, was to government failures of wars and refugees, tsunamis, shortage and grain, exports after revolutions in Arab countries, food conflicts range from riots to nuclear war, liquid food and wars, and so over. Having food is the most underrated weapon of peace. There's no such thing as an optimal level of unemployment causes inequality. Number 20, we do not have optimal illiteracy. The notion of optimal unemployment will not survive because economists like economic and social costs are staggering unemployment, spreads like a virus, layoffs, spread and multiply all lost jobs, costs those to reduce spending one unemployment, those another out of work unemployment, steadily research found economic insecurity and unemployment, reduce social, economic, and health problems, jobless, it's the only catch you do unemployment, reduce social capital, unemployment causes malnutrition, mental health, unemployment contributes to urban blight, and economic destitution, increases income inequality, produces exclusion, and exacerbates tensions. It has a negative impact on tech innovation and output, contribute to financial crises and instability, human trafficking, given millions every day while carrying enormous social and economic costs because you have expanded the natural inequality degrades institutions through populism and nativism, which guarantees extinction. Schmidt and Jujin 21, inequality increases, carbon footprint comments, the X risk, high inequality will worsen institution quality, the disaster preparedness, public health, foreign policy. In order to institutions reduce aspirations for reduction strategies require public and collective blessing and good institution by being all purpose attack and whatever accident to come out waiters, consensus and politically captured and rights thinking. Industries like oil, gas, weapons, and others are short-term inequalities like reduce social capital, trust, direct evidence suggests societies with higher social capital exhibit better preventive measures, bad conditions, increase accidental risk, conflicts on risk and equal engineer virus, and on AI to be purposeful or accidental form of empirical evidence, political polarization increases the risk of violent conflict and inequality, increases polarization, populist politician, bad news, societies to work against inequality, reinforce pro-social norms, countries with inequality, reinforce competition, personal responsibility, moral culture, and minus on reduce accidental risk. Innovation is collapsing, productivity, innovative activity is slowing, studies document declining productivity, and conduct is former. And notice patents grants become less novelties, post-tense, security cost fields, hacker, less disruptive, decreased ranges from 91 to 100%. The failure to modify demand makes market transformation impossible. Mazzucato, 23, innovation is cumulative, finance must always be committed. Assumption is the financial shortage is not only untrue, but needs incorrect policies, capital scarce from restructure matter. There is a demand problem, not achieved by making it easier for business not to provide money, but more less assumption matter, difference how we understand innovation, determine teachers of innovation, create reliable demand, create inducement to invest, tech wraps based on integrated networks that develop intense feedback, smart grids, cars, houses, IoT, nanotech, biotech, and innovate other industries, possibilities are disparate and unconnected missions required for a transition are social and economic as technological, only common direction contribute synergies and contracts with specific industries direction provide conversion trajectories that provide advantages. Synergies make innovation easy and profitable without welfare. Same aspect would not be there to generate scale, significant efforts to stimulate policies. We're far from sufficient or too dispersed to give demand complex feedback or unpredictable, not clear and stable. Policy demand all happen coherent gut policies about setting up. So demand for rotating profitability industries, so that's all opportunity validation strategies. Socialized innovation is vital to reshape converging accidental risk. Gonzalez 20 globalized crisis, current with increased vacancy, leverages innovation, achievement to sustainability, Bloomberg, opportunity, and direct candidates comments that compound accidental risk to produce decivilizaation, novel complex harmony with optimal performance increases with heterogeneity, specific risk, trust, terror, biotech, and HR exacerbates environmental crisis, unsustained expansion, and kind market corporation price shift that enables numbers of last resort investors. The first source of governance enabling unification is by canonizing mass greater reduce accidental risk, change how public value is practiced and smart innovation that U.S. capitalism drives mass migration, genocide, civil wars, interventions, and escalates the war in Gaza. Robinson 24 capitalism There's a social crisis of overaccumulation, stagnation, ruling groups, there's a political crisis, social disintegration. There's a maybe a testing effort of ruling groups from Washington to see how far they can enjoy impunity or really emblematic of global war economy conflict. Opens a profit for non-citizen numerous sectors, including financial conglomerates at the center of the economy. Shares of military firms in the U.S. region away from Ukraine. The economy was dependent on war to accumulate capital, face of stagnation. And saturation markets was the crisis is cracking system stability, every setting collapse, mechanism of domination, breaking down wars abroad, joint great powers, because nuclear poison. The states has each improved position after 2 times the moves for the interventions of wars. Nuclear competition has strong interest in credit, everywhere is nuclear wars, the wars surrendered. Strong access to intention, lasting temptation, if we disable its practice. Engagements between nuclear state firms, wars in regions, and political power companies will be attached. The U.S. is the key internal to nuclear war. Lopez that the U.S. party critical ingredient to nuclear Iran to make wishes. So U.S. use carriers to attack Iran can be taken out by Western radio hypersonics. Catalyst, the nuclear holocaust was Iran is supported Russia competing. A formal party will be on imagination. Russia response maybe the nuclear China take opportunity to launch that one war weaken the U.S. NATO, Russia, China, Iran, India nuclear war. Reality was 50 bombs or survival. U.S. drawing is imminent. 3, 4, 14. Also may respond to Iran's unprecedented attacks and provoke a wider conflict that the U.S. can drag into such a launch attack with the response given military strategy and senior defense officer should refer to internal conversations and characterized frenetic and catastrophically escalated Iran has been on the receiving end of a continued campaign that the greatest capabilities to attacks, killing commanders and scientists by the field, mercifully by sleepwalking and catastrophic war in the Middle East. His goal of preventing Gaza from escalating failed Asia has courted and encouraged by the prospect of U.S. hubs and attack by iron consequent president and make clear supports limited war with Iran when the pair of U.S. security board against it, interpreting this limited destruction of the strengths is recent dismisses willing to stand to be Israel. Iran is humiliated with dignity as Iran's foundational value. Iran's chief of staff and said Israel, if Israel attacks our next operation will be bigger, the Middle East appears to be descending into wider war. The United States federal government should adopt a socialist job guarantee financed by fiscal policies designed to facilitate socialism. Contention to solvency. A socialist job guarantee solves Hegel 23 we face an ecological crisis and a social crisis attempt to address one without the least contradictions and tries to do a crisis being driven by capitalist market protection by capitalism. I do not mean markets. These existed for thousands of years before capitalism. The defining feature is that it is anti-democratic production. It's controlled by capital corporations and 1% own the lion's share of assets. Capital wields power to mobilize labor and uses for whatever it was. The overriding objective is profit. The capitalist system is characterized by perverse production of the direct profitable output across periods of speculation where we produce product shortages, necessary goods and corporate trends, healthcare, nutrition, food, and affordable housing. Poverty and artificial scarcity can be immediately will not take much to introduce life for everyone. Innovation and inventions are crucial. Mobilization with democratic control over finance, production, and organize the well-being and ecology. We must establish public works programs to build renewable energy, restore ecosystems, and innovate tech investment is a job guarantee. Empowering people to participate in these programs with work-based marketing, ecological objectives, abolishing the unemployment insecurity, and just good lives from should be the market has brought under worker control. A socialist job guarantee is necessary to fight environmental degradation and solve food security. Should never touch food stamps where millions have access to food, making the U.S. dependent on brilliant environmental workers. The endless and urgent JG is one key mechanism for rural areas, but for sustainable agriculture can be a springboard for system efficient which generated ocean problem. Big ag has produced environmental hazards, water crisis, soil erosion, IBR. Sustainable agriculture can create more and better paid jobs. The JG can multiply SCSA's farm cooperative community emissions to single ag. Come on, food that's recycled, can help with building up address the economic crisis. All hands-on ag approach that has ongoing employment. Only a socialist job guarantee prevents inevitable market instability resulting from structural weakness. Skidelsky 22 guarantee for the public project provide expectation of foundation of economy, reduce the scope for blind fluctuations and more investors provide behavior which confirm sensible multiplying accelerator effects. Efficacy reinforcement and internalization of projects for improvement is the automatic fiscal stabilizer by public sector job program with directly offset variation created automatic capital switch offsets and private spending. Regulated market socialism requires a job guarantee. Lane 23. My proposal is regulated market socialism, state-led hybrid republican, private combining advantages of paying with markets. The objective satisfy needs and well-being through full employment nationalization, the private both through fewer discord and financial planning, economic collapse, civil war, and repression, banning the socialist class transitional. Balancing countries where the active system would not be dismantled. Civil society will remain pluralistic, electoral democracy, and southwest opposition to totalitarianism. Disarmed democratic participation to be widened to include employee participation and enterprises. Transition can take effect within the existing framework and preserve stability and have immediate effects. America's geo-economic tools will be geared to social democratic goals, which solves modeling. After June 20th, the after trade agenda tantalized for the global economic reform, the economic partnership shift, the regulatory environmental social democratic ends of repression, trade partners to production, US national trade comes geared to spike liberalization, global redistributed distribution, market comes mutual aid. Market para accomplish mutual aid.
Okay. Are you good for cross?
Yeah.
Okay. The Lane evidence says that regulated market socialism looks like a hybrid system of both public and private ownerships. To be clear, the AF keeps both public and private sectors alive.
Correct.
Okay. What sectors does the AF keep in place, and how is it determined what corporations are taxed versus left alone?
Taxes would be designed to price the negative externalities of the economy, things like social and
So
ecological.
who determines what those negative externalities are? Like, I get that the tax is put on negative externalities. Who determines what they are?
Economists and policymakers.
Okay.
Economists have already calculated the social and environmental costs of things like carbon, emissions, methane emissions.
So is there a tax
certain
on like
kinds of transportation
all carbon
activities.
all carbon emissions, or is it just that if a company is not doing enough that it would hurt the environment, then they would not be taxed?
The taxes would ensure that activities that harm society or the environment are not
Is the
profitable.
tax on fossil fuel companies 100%?
Very close to that, yes.
I mean, very close. The Hickel evidence says that the socio-ecological crisis is being driven ultimately by the capitalist system of production. That seems to indicate that.
Yeah, that's
if they're-
why the tax is very close to 100. It would take-
Where have you read evidence that says that, because they still exist in that world, even if they're 100%? Like, where have you read evidence that says that?
the
it won't
fossil
lead to
fuel activities would
overconsumption?
no longer be profitable, which means that the sectors would not exist.
They're no longer profitable? Wait,
Correct.
you said that the sector still exists, so then are they just?
No, I said that the taxes are near 100%. So what profit are they making? The
Uh,
other thing is that the job guarantee provides jobs that produce green technologies, green energy, which supplants the private sector
Sure.
for energy production.
The food scenario, the food security stuff, what's the scenario for food? Who is going to war over food?
What's the correct one? The crib evidence says that empirically food scarcity has been a primary driver in many wars. We think likely actors that could go to war over food now: United States, Russia, China, countries in the Middle East and South Asia. There's food shortages across the globe.
That makes sense. The Gaza scenario, the card that you've read, it says that the Robinson evidence just says that global capitalism faces structural crisis over accumulation. I guess that if the AF mainly gets rid of capitalism, like how does that mean Gaza no longer has any weapons, defense, etc.?
It means that America will no longer have a financial incentive to get involved in the war in Gaza.
Financial incentive. So, okay, in my reading of this card, it says about U.S. capitalism production.
Yeah, Robinson identifies the military-industrial complex and the drive for profit.
But then how would
The ability
Gaza
to sell arms to
ever
Israel.
win the war if the U.S. is not providing them?
No, the scenario is about U.S. drawing. Current aid to Israel guarantees conflict with these countries.
Okay, I'm sending out the. I just have to see. It's sent. The order is 8 off and sustainability themselves. Has everyone gotten the doc?
Give me 1 second.
Peninsula's good, panel good.
What's that? Sorry, I gotta move my sheets.
First off, the advantage counterplan the federal government should increase investments in the development and accessibility of carbon capture use and storage technologies, increase investments in projects in seagrass restoration and ecosystem services, expand international food aid and release, double investments in agriculture and food and agriculture aid and agriculture and food research over the next 10 years, expand international food aid and release, double investment in agriculture and food research over the next 10 years, and increase funding for the U.S. aid and U.S. Department of Agriculture, establish sectoral bargaining, standing banking regulations, predatory lending, and access to credit by federal reserves, and fast rates, strictly limited to artificial intelligence capable of independent invention without a human who fills your requirements of patent law frames, military engaging in the Israel Palestine conflict, solves warming through the carbon taxes, but IPC the records reduce carbon taxes through direct air capture through with carbon dioxide off greenhouse gases, solve food security, key 15 the issue double investment use agri-food reach the economy, and agri-local countries really game changing, increasing investment, sharing national priorities, we global local national research increase increase body increase body intelligence environment use research ability selling solves inequality doesn't to the exploitation of programs to analysis to the direct removal in the public to be necessary to be captured by companies like the survey those way zero power works that limited external marketing practices sector marketing factability solves innovation thought 20 late pressure about recognize suspending increase the AI as a core the products for power big crime percentage years they hit it in school and then pressure critical unlocking innovation innovation with the use of intervention give the US an edge next up is the conduct that is the United States limited constitutional definition called for by least for the state to ratified by least of the United States should adopt a social shock guarantee finding fiscal policies designed to facilitate social solve and avoid politics. COVID 21 constitutional provides the states in 3/4 speculative Congress federal money without what I was on share of the country Congress found the product record works today up in sorority or for limited purposes. Next off the policy side, Ukrainian passes now PC key up Habercorn 4 Biden working to ensure Johnson for the aid packet for Ukraine other than the full version for 7 8 the focus convincing Johnson others the now been away with Johnson really discussed Ukraine the Johnson meeting to cover the 8 the follow policy owner comes a job guarantee trades off Larry 18 additionally all the product for the non-public sector now has jobs at hand for the student question should pay into benefits inflation on the issue of political capital not figure everything policy that outside of interesting proposal like to get on board 8 stops nuclear war levy till 31 west probably critics by that Sarah Congress refused to with the policy yes the constitution authority enforces China and Turkey boundaries and the international aid early value can show prices over the Black Sea wipes are really available in stock policy to Ukraine able to Russia Gulf and for full for full scale US intervention next up is T redistribution only income taxes past 20 on redistribution policy able to income fiscal policies or redistribution violation of land taxes environmental externalities vote for limit search means any activity can be taxed making that research untenable next up is the CL kind of this is implement fiscal policies designed to facilitate socialism rule that is customary obligation to uphold positive labor law and compel enforcement of a job guarantee that solves and revitalizes I-law, otherwise extinction are created. 20 IL plan for multiple laws that face economic field in the face sounding challenge of recognition of qualities, public establishments, policies, segregation, state instructions, state success, intrinsic character, visibility, democracy, state, we bear shifts to the unfettered sovereignty, national benchmark is beneficial, can be used by the association field to I-laws and I-solidarity beyond borders living. However, government project theory of next up is the dollar hedge decide concede that regulated market socialism causes banking, currency nationalization. One is the lane 20 they fill public banking, currency would be prime categories or public ownership, nationalization to stabilize currency markets and banking across the board. 0 at 11 nationalization of US banks to size will stabilize the market, nationalization, nationalize interest increase the common shareholders getting from that white man that nationalization of the public commission that sectors bank companies primary reason to having the rate house and the average is over runs instrument that causes problems give our within 5 years as of the banks which are possible like difficult to identify how to perform the actual nationalization without saying the markets are actually running in the banks that causes a capital flight panic in the collapse of the financial sector selling the 21 and risk of systemic of the monetary system policy response no crisis in making leaders of the banks and they difficulty with the actual bankers and another country living capital flight there's likely to panic and the financial system the financial sector could cease to operate trust regardless of summer you take it for granted that collapses dollar hedge and all of 20 dollar means that I'm going to get fundamental society using governing liquidity of the financial market now, if I can plug in the system, it creates an advantage outside of the US exchange company or determine the law system extinction through global nuclear war and global public goods offer $20 billion is driver relationship the talking to the anti-drug adventurers and then allow trade to share without creating worldwide distress of residential growth without getting influence and ultimately for banks being cut off with the and they said that sanctions to strike without a shot the JCPA that led to limit use by sanctions the dollar sold as we did after the social innovation all part of the money use care or global public goods climate mitigation next up is the K indication of death impacts and necrophilia body count that causes endless violence but neck to reject it murder 20 on necrophilia to destroy the exclusive interests of the life of the track of life and try to the pathological connected cause of the war inferior infrastructure by period administering people as things orientation makes life so less having existence where relationships possessing necrophilia spine violence regarding dark more life making to life and things everything instead going like a robot case. Growth is sustainable, capital is growth sustainable, environmental theories, the EPI, air sanitation, metal, and waste volumes, biodiversity, fisheries, climate pollution, water, ag, resource cycle, positive correlation, and performance GDP. Countries are high, economic high scores, and each country's after this competition for water structure policy, they really clear correlation analysis. Every 1 point increase in the country, there's an increase in EPIs with high coefficient, high relation to the correlation between the bank and the tech with data, the counts the environment decoupling is back, McAfee 20 doubling is back, China's scale, as GDP rises, temperature climate taking into account, and taking exposure, Italy, France, the UK, and then US fall, the easiest CO2 reduction on or due to tech and market forces cause have become too great to place no warming impact carried on 19. There's no reason such a climate breakdown being human projection of super so difficult to make it very between models and the health climate suffer not going to affect the outcomes of models and the side the likely this personal speculation rather than conclusion from record 7 is no climate wars led 21 in conflict appears and similar to general such as arguments here for academic literary to write the consultation long for such increase of itself IPC not find Sean Farrell link the articles not see scarcity self-resulting outcomes and impacts of construction on the practice so not global they may be regional effort to be living at these levels no food wars fast 18 little bit of food increases food increases conflict because people have to make the level conservation are not a position of violence, land corruption, and the democratic form of which will show that the tendency resource exploitation to be complex. America is insufficient because export location CL16 records from the world. Those agriculture from the US go to the wealthiest nations. A new report on cultivated agriculture use the world depends on US farmers. We send away meat products from the wealthy agriculture. US chiefly meet the rich affluent countries. Inequality is decreasing. By August 24, poverty is way lower than anything. Absolute poverty rate is lower. Measured inflation both by 90% and 1.6%. Inequality change low across all household one more than 5%. No impact to inequality. Early 16 effects of inequality. Not support high countries with high economic difference exhibit a weaker relation after the borderline significant interaction effects of inequality. Farmers significant use level of aggression. We test score other conflict and division correlate countries with diversity theory and other economic inequality. Diversity effect of the relation. Innovation is high now and sustainable. Well, 24 fastest productivity growth. Provides greater wage growth and for investment in business development accelerate. Using directed investment in manufacturing charge with it from greater use of data advances more widespread use of AI cloud computing and analytical research business using investment computers equipment software R&D economic people change culminated. Engage spending on IP, the IRA, expanding green energy, convert the private sector, more innovative future, socialist innovation fails, trigger 20 days, second problems, and investors are highly private enterprise, keeping capital in the hands of the sector, and empowering owners as investment government, better percent across the people government, run health and healthcare systems, by long wait times, markets, rationing, risks well, because people a chance to be better, avoid social governance, but let's innovate a little bit, could be the impact evidence is about these buzzwords without a terminal, capsules, wars, settlement, 20, the wars, which we're interest of way, capital, social practices, wars, more coming capital, elevated persistence, war, more capital, not set of security with cap wars decrease, excess metals, temperature, more social capital to be the first and the further study examining the social policies leaders result with capital but most important factor of absence of conflict status market stability and peace almost all studies support peace by change zero internal link to Gaza taxing corporations doesn't remove the alliance with Israel no escalation Mattress 20 the major rounds not afraid that the Iranian leaders of national would avoid substantive sugar violence with dragon war a country to a war with Israel and the US war it would lose there's already consideration with force and country aid free militarily Arab states won't have a war and which participation would prevent the states a little in sympathy or boss Gaza risk of escalating remain low no draw in McKenzie 415 this will not take part in the counteroffensive by control doesn't these would not participate like and also needs just to avoid escalation that imports the attack causing large spot share price in Israel responsible to measure solvency. Job guarantee fails. One private sector backlash of 18 day running against repetition which considerable pressure on the private challenge that is serious. 2 state resistance. Carpenter 20 and polarized about the state's strong cooperation with federal employment. Socialism fails. Tor 19 the deficit directly additional market infrastructure unlike result well for now. Police competition fund of policy for market review strategy results of this charter. Also this competition efficient effective only specific circumstances even though laws are competition realities more challenging illustrated because of this regulatory elements are disadvantaged via these sophisticated firms.
Okay. You good?
Yeah.
You skipped the last 2 off, correct?
Yes.
Did you skip anything else? Did you hide any theory?
Oh, I didn't read the Crenshaw card
On case.
on case.
Yeah, I know about case. The dollar hedge is that the link card you read just says that when there is a crisis in the banking system that triggers the link. How is that linked to nationalization?
No, it says that companies that fail the public and are clearly lacking public responsibility would be taken into public ownership. Banking and currency would be prime candidates for public ownership.
No, the Stellinger card.
Oh, the Stellinger card, my bad. The Stellinger card is not the link card. That is part of the internal link. The whole scenario for a dollar hedge is that, the plan would result in nationalization of banks.
Wait, how is there any uniqueness for this? The Stellinger card is written in 2021, doesn't assume the financial crisis caused by COVID,
Dollar hegemony is high.
Silicon Valley Bank.
Dollar hegemony is high. It's the world's leading reserve currency. There's no other nation that could.
Yeah, but it was high despite these numbers. So how is there uniqueness for the
Well,
link?
the F literally nationalizes every company. It would be a huge
Also,
destabilization.
the
Is there
Stellinger
evidence?
evidence is not uniqueness. It is the internal link as to how capital
Yeah, but the
flight.
internal link doesn't have uniqueness.
No, that's
The Norloff evidence, it says that hegemony, that dollar hegemony is strong because of things like security ties, the U.S. Role in the international order, and such. What does the app change about any of these things that undergird dollar
Disagree. The
hegemony?
Norloff evidence says the size of the U.S. economy, the commercial and financial markets, which the app would tax out of existence, the liquidity, debt breadth, and openness of U.S. financial markets. The app is a socialist fiscal policy that nationalizes every company
Who's
and
the
taxes them out of resistance and gets rid of the
Who's the
profit.
alternative to dollar to the dollar?
Probably China.
You just said that like economic openness is a prerequisite to that. Why would countries switch?
Why would countries switch it? Because
investors are scared of losing their money. Like they will see as
Yeah,
nationalization.
but Chinese banks are nationalized. So
Chinese banks.
how-
No,
like,
no.
what-
Well,
what?
China is one example. They would go to other countries that are not nationalized, and they would adopt different currencies. They
Can
would
I get
shift.
that benefits?
The advantage counterplan is politics. The CIL counterplan is internal. The con counterplan is politics.
Okay. Can you kick thanks? The Ukraine decide the impact card is written 4 months ago, and it hasn't passed since then. Why?
We'll read uniqueness evidence that says Ukraine is about to run out of money. Now is the critical point. The next
But that's
couple of weeks.
that's what Levi was predicting 4 months ago.
Well, yeah, it says if it's like in a scenario in which Congress refuses to approve the funds and Ukraine loses, that's our argument.
We also will read evidence that says Russia has more of a motive, which means that US funding now is necessary even further.
I'm sending the basic. Tracy is sent. Is everyone good for an order?
1 second.
Okay. Sustainability, solvency, topicality, advantage, counterplan, CIO, counterplan, counterplan, death critique, Ukraine aid dissat, dollar hedge dissat.
Can I get the off case one more time?
Yes. T, advantage counterplan, CIO counterplan, counterplan, critique, Ukraine, dollar hedge. Is everyone good? Okay. Growth is unsustainable because the evidence does not conclude it's fast enough. Our evidence says that climate change is existential now, no decoupling. It's not fast enough, and fossil fuel use is continuing to skyrocket. Climate change defense does not assume climate wars, and it causes instability, which straight turns all of their existential risks. So, impacts on security, challenging political terrorism, economic damage to reach trillions per year, deterring security, health, water and food security, disease epidemics, and starvation effect multiplier. Food defense is inconclusive, and it does not assume geopolitics, which makes food security uniquely escalatory now. Their exports card is incorrect. The U.S. is the breadbasket of the world, reaching 21 half of food globally comes from the U.S. making the Midwest the breadbasket of the world. Inequality is not down now. Unemployment is at an all-time high, and that's driving social disintegration. No impact to inequality is about war, not provision for the public good, which caps all existential risks. Innovation is not high now. The evidence has no data. While patent data concludes that innovation is down 100% across the board, socialist innovation does not fail. The evidence is it's not about market socialism, about central planning. We preserve the price signal, but we allow for more increase in spending and expansion of demand, which makes innovation better. No impact, yes, impact to innovation. They drop the card, which says we solve every existential risk. Capitalism does not solve war, it makes war inevitable. Code 22. Rivalries between capitalist states are inevitable. Rivalries will give rise to devastating wars in the socialist world. Without capitalist may avoid wars. Capitalist peace theories can put mechanical 22 solid capitalist peace. Ukraine rising touches the Asian war, world confirm realize reverse logical independence, low barriers to flow goods. The effects of that cause peace on the even notion. Moscow society remain Ukraine with multi-billion project. Yes, China engaging in a trade war. Yes, allies are more economically dependent on China and the US. Continued economic change, avoidance, US front wars and interventions. Last one, too. A full certainly war would be because of US based strong policies, president weak. This peace solving out the world to the US considers so strong Korea, China do the Vietnam, US aggressive policy symbolizing access when they said to talk with US and having my covered on US aggressive policy in Reagan in 2007 to blow to the economy and result the US began to emphasize cooperation but as the US recovery became aggressive, culminating trade war right from Japanese militarism. The German fascist World War today, the US suffers defeats, it will not move to front war. COVID and 08 thump and economic collapse is inevitable from unemployment and inequality that's Jujin and Geneva. They say there's no internal link to Gaza. We read the most recent evidence that says that only an end to capitalism can solve. They say there's no draw-in, but our evidence assumes Biden and says that there's still ways the United States can get involved despite his claims. Solvency. No backlash evidence is about degrowth, not market socialism, which improves quality of life. No state resistance because fiat solves and the job guarantees enforced by the federal government. Socialism transition does not fail. Again, it's not about market socialism nor a job guarantee. T. We mean pretext is most objective, counter to fiscal distribution is transfers or taxes but no tough. To achieve distribution, governments collect taxes and mix expenditures and transfers. 3, Afghan income taxes are indefensible versus taxes picking. States campaign picks solve their offense. Predictability, our evidence is most precise. Functional limits, case states. Economy and politics solve. Condos voter A, fairness sound to deters proliferation of overpowered campaigns. B, quality of rates discourages offensive drugs testing. And cost of labor grounds. Dispose solves and no judge kick forces multiple 2 ARs. The advantage campaign. 1. Due to plan and combination of planks shields the link. 2. Each plank links enough benefit, triggers inflationary pressures, destroys the economy, and is politically infeasible. 3. No solvency advocates just when you want your answers. 4. Geoengineering exacerbates ecological destruction. Bruno 18. Allowing one control the thermostats would result in complex expansion to carbon removal based on neoliberal logic companies. What about use of emerging water, CDR faces? What is a promoted hyper-psychological speculative investment, market kind of speculative investment that causes extinction of code 23. The next climate war would involve global new configuration and emissions generation can be back one of. No society work on action can be deployed in smaller even also accuracy study with utilities objects was necessary options and weaponization and miscut. 5. Capitalism makes unsustainable food inevitable, which they don't solve, that's egoist, and they don't produce more food, which our evidence says is necessary. 6. The Fed alone obviously cannot solve inequality. Our evidence says unemployment is the largest interlink. 6. AI cannot solve innovation because our argument is innovation is good, not the other way around. 7. Their evidence, the war plank does not solve other modes of escalation and civil wars, nor the United States getting involved through other means outside of Israel. 8. U.S. capitalism is driving Armenia, Azerbaijan war, socialism solves wars. 20. Countries national conflicts between Armenia and Azerbaijan and intervention in Turkey's rising government interests of Western oil profiteers and practices of bloodshed communist parties cover ceasefire winning a wider war that quickly lost nuclear and 20. Conflict and launching Russian Turkish clash strong in NATO Russia protect Armenia fight over Georgia. Russia resolve nuclear seduction Moscow launch missile warns NATO escalate instantly nukes in short time frame. CIL campaign. 1. Permanent plan and compound over a guarantee. 2. Permutation of both shows the link. 3. Permutation of compound shows advisory not certain also equals all which may succeed. Only the least of the resources must not be rated risk approval or decision as conveying imperative obligational compulsion or option as one condition or mandate. 4. Permutation of plan and compound over fiscal policies. 5. Permutation of plan and compound over CL broadly. 6. Permutation of compound and then the plan should refer to future value. Should look to future the most present future possible events. 7. Process compounds winning should steal the after block recycling. 8. Compounds must compete via text and function. Anything else encourages block recycling, which ensures fairness. 9. Say no breaches. 2. Biden's minimize when we bring applicants such as better solid leaders by God to the future yesterday. 10. Doesn't solve because a JG, if the campaign does not feel a socialist job guarantee, which means that it will preserve capitalism. 11. CIO is bad, states backlash. 19. New course on the IOC, right of explanatory part to do analysis of available evidence and practice for determination of access of CIO is most certainly not a third opinion about resolving leadership, but we have no authoritative answers. Market code are authoritative answers. There's also no spillover because past CIO thumbs, and we solved in that benefit. We've also impact turned to internal link because using capitalist international law is bad. Only socialism solves the environment and the laundry list. Con. 1. It's uncertainty caused preemption, accidentally mandatory card for vicious cause of change, uncertainty concerns about lack of precedent, and appropriate guidelines possibility for runaway victims. Made people worried, nothing to prevent contact being expanded. U.S. countries have succeeded strongly. Rose setting actually was concerns. 2. Permanent both issues. 3. Permutation of the compound. 4. Links in that benefit because first time it's been done with connections. 5. Concourse of voting issue for clash unpredictably steals the undermining Afghan centers controversy critique. 1. Framework ready after needing links of planning thesis non-resolutional, which expands to class 2. They link performance based on rejected human policy maximize balance. 3. Link turn the also from slide 4. Permanent plan and reject death impacts. 5. Death reps good to 3. Death appear increase self efficacy here from reflection and simple language state that critical thinking might compare to critical thinking. All fails. Death reps are inevitable. Picks are avoiding issue reason to reject the team. Moots the one you see enters revolutionary protection reject the team for deterrence. Ukraine. 8. Pass letters to 413. Legislation was locally assassinated Senate Speaker. Democratic demands 1 vote on 7 vote. Johnson attended 30. Security policy with suffering job letting backlash and legislation. You can get to the conference to divide remains. How he has altered the bill remains open. Market code open. Permanent both. Politics are intrinsic. Other issues of for example, FISA and Israel backlash ensures Ukraine passage weapon. 4.2. Negative policy appears Ukraine's opponents' policy might be remediated or the passage can be rebuked over GPs. Spectrums will be presented to directed associations that seems fair by Johnson social substitutes for them. Targets of caucuses are satisfied. European orders other measures solve pipe for 260 currents in the cabinet. PAM use the EU which allows transfer of equipment, access opportunity for for new Russia, central assets to support Ukraine, and the EU solves make E2 the EU so agree to fund the deal with 50 billion for Ukraine. No nuclear escalation cost 21 to 70% reduced to 25 direct after Russian political and military damage. Russia's resources to emphasize downsides, market downsides. No spillover effects because Vietnam and Afghanistan proved. Dollar hedge. One, Nick is all about nationalization of financial crises which are inevitable. That's when you see China $2 hedge facility occurs. But the banks keep responsible dollars of the dollars people. More than $1 trillion notes reports of the rise have been exaggerated bigger than this place in order to credibility of MPB. Money since inertia of each other seems diversifying. But is it 3? X tax cost capital 5. That's lane 4. No impact dollar decline. Sharp for 16. Weakening of single over financial tax weakening 1 by 3 years per share power dollar. Simply larger one in currency regime transition would be as low as the country graduate the rest of the countries not successful until a single equal market balance. US will remain the center of the geopolitical process regardless of the dollar. 4. Devins agrees dollar hedge is resilient because of numerous structural advantages the US has unrelated to economics. Insert in blue. Dollar hedge causes US overreach and impacts Liu. 9. This new trade was being launched by US as a leader in origination has been winning in the current system. When international currencies are treated as dominated by dollars, the US hosts global taxes. All trade foreign investment denominated dollars can naturally use long budget on dollars. It's just well authorities workers will keep wages low. That's overcapacity. Let's put it.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay. The advantage counterplan. What's the warrant for why geoengineering fails?
Why geoengineering fails?
Yeah. This card just lists a bunch of like environmental problems that could go wrong. It says geoengineering causes them. Why?
Reason why geoengineering causes more environmental problems is because it relies on faulty technology that causes
Why is-
leakages
why is
into
it
the
faulty?
oil, into the
Wait,
soil,
what evidence
into the
says
ground.
leakage? What evidence says leakages?
The Bruner evidence. It's
Where?
about why it would quote erode biodiversity and soil erosion, deplete groundwater, and incentivize land
That
grabs.
seems like very assertive. The COTS evidence. What's the warrant?
It's not assertive. It's written by the professor of the department.
Why does capitalism lead to war? Is the argument just that trade is not create peace?
So yes, that is one argument. Trade does not create peace, proven by Ukraine and Gaza. Second is that military-industrial complex has an incentive to launch wars of aggression because that's how they make profit. Third is that
What's the
interdependence
scenario for
counterintuitively
war?
can make war more.
Okay, what's the scenario for capitalism causing war?
1. Civil wars proposed in evidence in the one you see. 2. Wars of aggression in the
Civil
global
wars
south and
civil
third
wars
world
between-
countries.
Civil wars between people.
The proposed evidence says that the United States and other great powers, when they defend countries in the global south or in other regions, the Middle East and Africa, that causes draw-ins, which goes nuclear. They have an
Okay, sure.
incentive to do so
Solvency.
because they want to expand their military-industrial
Okay,
complex.
makes sense. Solvency. How does fiat solve state resistance?
Because the federal government is the one providing the jobs, not the states.
What evidence?
And also, they would obviously be constitutionally compelled to do so.
How could the
It's a
DOL
federal jobs
how could
guarantee.
the
That's what
DOL
federal
just-
means.
How could the DOL have like 12 million?
Because that's what socialism does. It expands the enforcement arm of the federal government. It expands the staffing of agency and expands the role of the federal government.
Okay,
That
then
is what
let's look at
socialism is.
Chanel evidence on the Ukraine dissent. What is the reason why Ukraine aid?
There are so many different reasons. First is that Johnson would lose his job if he pushes for Ukraine aid
Well,
because Marjorie Taylor Greene has said so.
Okay.
Second is that Trump is not on board with Ukraine. Third is that there are differences between what the Senate Democrats want and what the House Republicans want.
what is
Johnson has
difference?
specifically said that he does not support Senate version of Ukraine.
What
which
does
makes-
Johnson not like about it?
Like about what?
What does Johnson not like about the Senate?
He doesn't like how it's not a loan. He doesn't like how Trump is not on board with it, and he thinks
Immigration.
that
Why couldn't they just pass
it
Why couldn't
doesn't
they just
include
pass it?
immigration.
Why couldn't they just
It's
pass it
lack
as
of
well?
Israel.
Why couldn't they just pass it?
Senate would say no to that. Yeah, because then it'll have to go back to the Senate. The
evidence
Senate
says
has, like many progressive Democrats in the Senate have said that they will not support immigration, they will not support Israel.
Okay, then the
Then
EU
that would
evidence,
cause.
What is the okay? It says that the EU agreed a funding deal for Ukraine. What is included in that funding
It
deal?
says $50 billion. That is more. That is equivalent to the size of your disadvantage, which is $60 billion. There's no reason why $10 extra billion matters.
And then
Can we get the order one more time?
Yeah, it's the dollar hedge dissad,
Mhm.
and then it is the advantage,
Mhm.
and then solvency.
Cool. Thank you.
Peninsula, y'all good?
Yes.
Panel, good as well?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Dissad outweighs magnitude dollar depreciation sparks global war by undermining geoeconomic leverage and trade necessary to sparse hot and small escalation sanctions effective as crucial Canadian abroad and integrated to flashpoint. The rapidly go nuclear externally lost zero value ruins progressive spending necessary for public goods and mitigate existential disease and warming that Zofer caps all escalations above and peak. When Russia talked about the US for Latin sanctions, its organization of Chinese and even North Korea's nuclear provocations of mass sanctions, geoeconomics has been replacing world those such as great powers might read 1940 as simply the world failed to understand economic integration. The US has geoeconomic beneath the sanctions, superpower creation of Europe network effects multiply influence that the world might watch conflict on China's countries, particularly the larger economy. China, Carl, here's a small stick when it comes to conflict. SCS for geopolitical conflict. Economics is the order the dollar gives the US a force to effort. The perception of decline causes immediate lash out nuclear war that's trusted 14. Struggle of US single dollar by new bay become World War III. At least a desperation will lead us to a real world war which goes nuclear with Russia and China win. The dollar fails even as hitting the tipping point have been reached. Any nation do not use the dollar is hit with economic sanctions if there's already bombs start dropping now. 2C1 is the link/recession net. Well, dollar hedges high now. They dropped out, which means I'm not going to read new cards. It's strong, but shocks like the plan could throw it off track. But I will answer recession inevitable here. Recession is not inevitable. It's the roaring 20s. That means growth sustainable forever. The Smith 1118. Remote technology should benefit influence investment is more than the private sector investment, keeping a full employment. There's a lot of technologies, vaccines, batteries, enable, and much bigger impact, enable, juice productivity for the business model innovation. The roaring 20s are just getting started. The country is so major pessimism, optimism. Their evidence displays downturns for recession, inevitable declines from business cycle are predictable, and leave time to adjust. As Baker 20. With potential admin downturns, they focus business while making it fully recession proof, achievable goals, minimizing slowdown. While business cycle ended downturns, recession are not available. Surely as a lighter recession in 1901 expansion of old age when there are external shocks, inflation rates, interest rates low. That would suggest that fearful economic shocking will be, even if recession when emerging will be mild and give it time to adjust. That is consensus of Carter 21. Many economists believe recession not inevitable. Evidence from 70 years shows that recession is not likely. Federal Chair Yellen says, I think it's meant to have a positive recession overheating which demand outstrips supply shocks interference in the market. I will answer to say the second part of the argument. Yes, definitely as a link the plan collapses the value of the US banking is count 9. If the government nationalizes the bank, state corporate go bankrupt, that goes way beyond any speech of the thinking through the implications of nationalization. Neither the FDIC nor did any other agency prepare for this kind of management. Taxes the only other problem that 5 or 6 major financial institutions know they're fearlessly issued a handle on nationalization. You tend to lose the franchise value advocates who are in denial that ensures backlash from corporate agents. Jackson 20. That it causes capital flight. That's Jackson 20. Banks are central law authorities policies as long as supporting corporate interests. The economy driven by private spending means that capital in the concept of global capital flows, capital flight on the part of domestic and foreign capital and foreign access of John H. Japan on a huge reserve for the U.S. fund we like to self-lift. The fears that U.S. would making too much of pregnant risk and cost capital from the U.S. dollar on the private bondholders that the no link they are trying to make is wrong. Screenshot of the relevant when you see evidence is pregnant. They cannot dodge the link. Independent voting issue for cowardice. We conceded to claim that the app nationalizes a result in nationalization explicitly made in the evidence described the scope of the plan. They chose to use this term, the coward regulated market socialism, to characterize the function of the plan, and it chose to highlight banking as one of the specific sectors that gets nationalized. There's no difference between public ownership and nationalization, and the land card uses term nationalization interchangeably. The card, our 1C link evidence doesn't require the U.S. nationalize all banks immediately, just a gradual strategy of nationalizing that sector that's sufficient to cause capital effect from U.S. banking networks. Now, the next argument is the dollar hegemony is resilient. Their evidence does not take into account what would happen if nationalization occurs. It says that recent reports in recent decades seems exaggerated, but it's not about our scenario. The next argument is the exit tax solves. Not a complete argument, no explanation for how the exit tax was solved, but also the tax would not solve a crumbling back system, which is what causes investors in the first place to move away, which causes capital flight and move all of their assets and other money into other countries, because the exit tax was also not be able to revitalize banks. Next argument is that there's no impact to dollar decline. Your defense is wrong. Geoeconomic leverage is a new deterrence, granting the U.S. unparalleled influence to zap conflicts and create deep trade integration that destroys escalation. That's over and in place necessary for financial diplomacy. We substitutes for military aggression and finances public goods as baboons collapse therapy that causes currency wars that go nuclear. That's RC 14. Dollar allows the U.S. to shape the globalized system of offering the distillation from international crisis. Current World War III is systemic monetary compound could be detonated if the currency war spiral. Deterioration to greater massive war. Dollar remains superior now to the current currencies of Russian China will have nuclear weapons force the U.S. to adapt. Now the last argument is that the dollar hedge causes overreach. Is answered, but the two impacts that they've heard: one, poverty. It's answered by the Ariely evidence, which will be extended on case. case, but also there's no war scenario. Capitalism definitely solves a war scenario that they've highlighted, but they've got the impact scenario backwards. We read evidence on the overview that says that dollar hegemony collapsed, and the dollar hegemony collapsing is what would cause war. Also, they've conceded uniqueness, which means that you default to R impact because you know that it's strong now, but only the link, which was also basically conceded, is what would trigger war or conflict. Case. Sustainability, they're wrong about it. Decoupling is absolutely socialists are lying. That's Smith 23. The left of free effect make growth and resource limitation, decrease limited due to vigorous pushback against unrules, all the transition to entry, and require untenable standards. Decarbon are slow vehicle. Also uses is used to aggregate measures that terrible includes material recycle, sustainability ignores the most important sustainability substitution. Sustainability increases tonnage, also increases transactionality. Just line up going to achieve the correlation of resources. As of the law of the universe, there's no reason to believe that countries decoupling and decarbon decoupling is possible. That is nonsense. Absolutely decoupling is possible in every country outside your emissions. It doesn't happen. There's no reason the world can't decouple. Takes several years by which time unrest will already be behind us. The only more is that decoupling does not happen faster. Strike it off your flow. We have evidence that says that multiple countries are already able to reach decoupling, and we are able to reach absolute decoupling because it's been proven to work in decades. Now, the climate defense, there's no impact to warming. Models are way off. Hindcasting shows change far slower than forecasts, and sensational predictions have failed for decades. Worst case, it's not for centuries, pushing by inevitable mitigation. That's the one and see evidence. That, the only word was that it doesn't address climate wars. The internal link to climate wars is obviously climate change, which if we prove that there's no impact to that, there would be no escalation. Their evidence cherry picked that Zikers, we won. In a cherry picked analysis, activists found their limiters and fighting predictions. The others evidence support these claims. There's no trend on hot days, reconstruction, global temperature of 1 million years shows nothing unusual. Arctic sea ice has declined. Meanwhile, Arctic has been growing. Global sea ice has remained constant. Dire predictions are almost generated by models driven by highly complex assumptions. No trigers for falling zero operates. Observed temperature lies at 2.5%. All models overset by a factor between the poor predicted for exacerbated by tendency to assume that unrealistic increases. The average increase over 5 times the annual borderline. Impossible. Does not turn the scenarios because it happens way slower than sharp shocks from our collapse of dollar hegemony. Now the food insecurity, the food impact taxation is wrong. They've dropped 3 warrants. They can't access it. There's no food wars. 1, disconnected countries desperate enough to lash out for food don't have nukes. 2, empirics countries turn inward. A cooperative time destroyed. 3, confounders. Scarcity as a driving factor is drowned out by land corruption and economics. That's the FPL evidence. Will never escalate. That's sub 16. Research not indicating clear link between food and conflict. Many countries face food shocks without conflict. We need to simply design with their surviving for the countries have institution providing health assistance and effectiveness of difference in Haiti, difference Mexico, Philippines, digital strife, existing food price shocks and not security. Now security. The next argument is the inequality stuff. No inequality scenario. Before our evidence, the powder caucus evidence is way newer than theirs. Is from 2024. It's declining evidence omits variables, transfers public goods, and decreasing average wealth gap. Zero uniqueness. Appeal to singular statistics are relevant examples of greater mobility. Poverty measures fell from 10% to 1.6%, but to no war. I realize it's the only study on the matter and concludes no effect on aggression nor instability. The next impact was that innovation. The only argument is that innovation is not high now, but they've conceded the warrants and the Schrager evidence that says keeping capital in the hands of the private sector and empowering its owners to make decisions best. Markets are good at rationing risk, which is what fuels growth. Only that can prevent shortages of goods. Socialist governments have been less innovative than others. There's a little incentive in those governments to compete. That's the Schrager evidence. To group their any less capitalist or less growth-oriented model of Brexit, which impovers society and ensures violent conflict, turns all of their impacts to Toronto is white. Innovation is lower in socialism. Democratic majorities not immune to factors that causes the management of conservative innovation. Is different in any economic system with the employment guarantee loss. Maybe involved starting careers or moving if there is international rivalry. Centers compared to the lifestyles. Those are social will be attractive for reback and commerce. Philosophy and other models, but the trade-off between job security and innovation is not limited in military innovation, but TV's just to be able to hurt the socialist side and international relation, even if conflict takes place, it was actually believe the Cold War as that struggle. Any future social and economic will likely face a similar struggle. Now the cap solves war. The Gaza scenario is wrong. Leaders are rational. Actors will avoid steps that go trigger a runaway spiral that drags your country. It'll be Gaza and cap will be one of them. I'm good whenever.
Okay. Let's talk through this dollar hedging pact. Your
Yeah.
1NC card talks about JCPOA. The JCPOA died. How does sanctions solve Iran nuclear proliferation?
No, our argument, the argument that we're making is that, one, the sanctions, I'm confused by
The
your...
sanctions have failed. Iran is seeking the bomb right now.
No, but the first piece of evidence to look at, the Zofer evidence says
that is the card I'm referencing.
Yeah.
JCPOA, which died, which Trump withdrew from, and which its sanctions are clearly failing because
No,
Iran is
it's about the evidence is about new sanction effectiveness is crucial to
Wait,
contain Iran and North
But
Korea.
you're defending the status quo.
Yeah, but I'm saying that
And if you read the news, you can see that Iran is very close to the bomb. Your evidence also cites North Korea, but North Korea got the nuclear weapon. How do sanctions stop them from?
no, this doesn't take out the scenario because it's about how the sanctions effectiveness. It's about
They failed.
No, but it's
They
about
literally haven't stopped.
that
North
is not
Korea
about
from
our
getting
link scenario. The link scenario that we have extended is about dollar hegemony and how the plan would cause
the bomb.
capital
No, I'm talking
flight.
about the impact, not the link.
Yeah, but No, it's all intertwined because the link evidence is, or the
No,
link is.
I'm asking how is there uniqueness for the impact? How is dollar hegemony effective when all of the examples in your card go affirmative?
Yes, this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is the internal link to the impact scenario. The internal
That
link
makes no
is.
sense. Your
Yes, it
evidence
does. It's
also
about
talks about-
capital flight. All of your examples
That's
are
not
not
an impact.
contextualized
I'm
about.
asking about how you solve war.
Yes, the impact to our scenario is dollar depreciation, but we think that
But how does that solve war?
how does dollar depreciation solve war? Our
Yes.
whole point is that we don't want dollar depreciation to occur. That's what
Okay,
sparks
so-
war.
Your evidence also talks about how dollar hegemony and sanctions power deters adversaries from launching wars. Russia invaded Ukraine. The United States imposed super harsh sanctions on them. Why did that not stop them from starting the war?
Well, one, we've read evidence that says this is a question of like uniqueness. We've read uniqueness evidence and link evidence.
I'm
that is
asking about the impact. I'm not asking about uniqueness.
Yeah, but you're getting this backward because the impact is reliant on, like, you're asking about thumpers, etc. Obviously,
No,
the magnitude
you
of the
said
link.
that sanctions are effective now because of dollar hegemony. My question is, how are sanctions effective now? When we have seen with every empirical example.
It's
that they
crushed
fail.
Russia's economy. They've been unable to overcome like a tiny little state with barely any support from the U.S. because their economy has been collapsing. There's no motive
Okay,
to
so
support the war in Russia because of those sanctions.
you're basically conceding Ukraine this time. That makes sense. Your evidence also talks about
The win.
like universal healthcare and public good provision. How does dollar hegemony solve those things?
Dollar hegemony, yes. Absent, if the dollar is not strong enough and if people move away from.
No, but the United States does not have universal healthcare. So how does dollar hegemony solve?
No, but it's about the whole impact scenario is about how the dollar and keeping the dollar strong is necessary to maintain things like healthcare and other things in place in the United
Yeah, but
States.
your SOFR card is about universal healthcare.
No,
which
it's
the United
it's not
States
just
does
about universal healthcare. It's also about keeping health measures in place that exist,
And how does
which
that
would
solve
not work
extinction?
if the dollar hegemony was if the dollar was not resilient.
So 1 and 7. Order is T. Just let me know when you're. The order is T. Then the advantage counterplan. Then the CIL counterplan. Then the compound counterplan. Then the death K. Then the Ukraine decide. Then the advantage. Okay, panel good.
Give me a second. I need to.
Conditionalities go together. We did 1 Netflix, plan vagueness, tidiness, and Saturday. Vacuum require multifaceted testing. This book kills it. 2 arbitrariness, non-resolution theory is unpredictable and regressive. 3 innovation. Fallback strategy, encourage new arguments, turning research. 4 info processing. Hard 1 sees 4 sufficiency, fast answers, fostering critical thinking. Defense 1 utility. Advocacy, speak and value. 2 skew inevitable. T dissets and speed. 3 reasonability. Reject the argument. It's not the team. Dispose bad. 1 definitional consensus. None makes it untenable. 2 force purpose processing. Compatible team strengths. 3 logical but improving the counterplan bad is not the win. This is good. Advantage counterplan critique the permutation. Not going forward. Reject the argument. Not the team. No geoengineering impact. Irv 9 all 19 using high floor alongside 12 models of GI and 9 PV analysis relocation like this moderate at 5G. SG offset cyclone intensity and the temperature of water. The water precipitation exacerbated by the average OV. IPC region less than 0.4% of the services conservation. The impact is resource wars that was answered on case. No Azerbaijan error. 1 not causal. It's highlighted like a haiku and does not say capitalism causes it. 2 link differential. Their evidence says communists, not socialists, are trying to de-escalate. 3 uniqueness. Neither of those communists succeed now or the plan can solve. 4 no impact. Mohammed 19 Azerbaijan that's reconciled never will reconcile. 27 was more so unfortunate for our making the targets not in the fire general systems. 10 to 6 major military operationology and technical abilities of Azerbaijan. John armed forces improved significantly. Marked it significantly. CIL concede perm not going for it. Reject the argument of the team. Con same thing. Death case same thing here as well. Picks are good. It's key to Netflix and arbitrariness because every counterplan is a pick and deterrence is dumb because we'll still read that. Ukraine. The dissent outweighs on magnitude failure signals U.S. weakness, ensuring spillover into NATO territory that forces instant draw in China and Iran and North Korea will be emboldened, sparking nuclear war that's levied outweighs the case one time frame. Their impacts are structural and far off to the probability. It's the only war that's happening now. 3 magnitude. For our 17 nuclear war gets smoke in the atmosphere is caused global ceiling also. Lost action from nuclear winter, nuclear drop in temperatures at 8 degrees Celsius, only possible to use Russia's small war. It's unlikely to lead to South Mars, so Soviet connection is greater from a conflict with the U.S. and Russia. It turns the case by causing inequality and environmental damage. Then now they say it won't pass. The drop link, the plan will make passage impossible because it's socialist. Then Republicans hate it. Ukraine will pass, moving for the first time in months. Biden is making a fresh push, and Johnson is finally willing that Cybercoin it'll pass. Edmondson 412 on Ukrainian officer shirts. We're going to get this on Johnson as a waited when the Republicans and escrow changes and loan Trump rates on Friday. We're thinking about making a loan. Johnson filed to bring up Sunday crash weekend. Moving into the House and attack the second block of the rebel also border security caucus taking PC's key. Biden close the deal. We're positive go 412. Biden called the House as action called. Close the criminal black dot one way to be disrupt Johnson. Seek a vote like one idea that's been floated to take a trade like a bad night. Deal maker should close the deal. Trump support pushes it across second late 412. This lawmakers might listen to Trump. They should Friday's the law. Johnson make the case that Trump is almost the party's trying to get well. Also Johnson making threat from great Trump and Johnson. We'll discuss these PC and bipartisan support ensure gets across possible 412. Silver lining, but it needs to emerge quickly. A critical moment has arrived. Congress needs to pass a package. Johnson needs to put Ukraine legislation on the floor after Reagan. While the food authorities order way that can force the Senate, there's a majority that would vote for in the House. They say that perm do both. Intrinsically, this is bad. No, it's all dissect on to allowing infinite to easy counterlines and interplants to pass through least restrictive means before it's key to Netflix because politics is a core generic and education politics is key for debaters to engage the real world. Thumpers is not a complete argument in the 2EC. Too late for the 1 AR. FISA already passed and no evidence as well. Pass PC. Ukraine is top of the docket because they're debating it now. Backlash does not solve. Rothman evidence is from 2 weeks ago. Throw it out. They drop PC is key. Johnson must avoid controversy. It's illogical. Johnson brings the plan to the floor and they fiat passage, so it'll get blamed on him, not the Democrats. EDA does not solve one signal. Shows that adversaries. Congress is polarized with aggression. 2, not enough weapons. Border 24 access defense articles rules the number of tools to another ideal days of roughly run produce not government money to see Ukraine's values. Captain 500 million. 3, we don't know where they are. West River 20th Army. The warehouse packed with services not where they are. The Pentagon needs a limited army. Needs digital info this weapon solar weapons in any situation. There's so many different types there are other important things. What is the condition? What most says it might not be working. They see Europe solves. The card says nothing. Ukraine needs Patriot missile defense. Cyber defense and munitions. Only America has them. This is about military, but not military, but diplomatic aid. It won't be enough. AP 124 controversy. Europe market not big enough to the Germany criticism. Ukraine bleeding it. Germany declined U.S. travel with the biggest only medium size cover. They say no escalation. That doesn't assume alliance commitments and force drawn. It also doesn't assume spillover effects. Afghanistan and Vietnam don't thumb the magnitude was far smaller. It doesn't involve another great power like Russia. Every hotspot explodes. Sounding feeling down to 214 20 days to support Ukraine. False war team. Given imperial ambition as well as diplomatic security values for these years, creating thousands of jobs invested in industrial manufacturing and additional legal and helps in previous war droughts rather than new supplies to revitalize NATO. Which my is really just great. And the only hope for winning shot of unity balance is last century Ukraine to consider repulsing the peace. To put his ambition being century of China to go back and crisis with immediate intangible benefits. Case. The Gaza scenario is wrong. Leaders are rational actors and will avoid South Africa trigger runaways while the drugs if he goes to the war. Israel or the United States, they neither would lose. That's Manon. They also dropped the second card that says that there is no incentive for Biden to escalate. It cites specific statements he told Netanyahu he would not get involved. The cost evidence is wrong about war to 420 when weakness was expected war not materials. Failed to analyze the socialist camp nationals prove more powerful war between social states was not thinkable. So the social Soviet against Hungary, Czechoslovakia, the PRC, complicated around the China Vietnam War liberation. So does Mujahideen as the Soviet Union extend the Seidelman evidence that says it cites an actual study instead of just a random socialist waffling about interdependence. It says capitalism is statistically likely to reduce a peace of war because interdependence keeps the peace because there's no incentive for countries to go to war with one another because of economic ties. Our evidence we've read on the Ukraine side also indicates that defense spending mediates war globally. They haven't read evidence that says because Russia and China aren't revisionists, so it's tried to deter them through capitalism.
I chose the O'Neill School because of its mission to lead for the greater good.
I came to O'Neill to study law and public policy.
Environmental management.
Healthcare management and policy.
Arts management.
Policy analysis.
O'Neill really attracts the best of the best, in my opinion. Faculty, talent, students, there's just so much going on.
O'Neill creates leaders, and we are expected to go out into the world after this and make a difference.
we all good for?
Sorry.
No worries.
My shoulder needs to
Oh
walk.
no.
2 seconds.
Great time.
Sorry. Let me get the document off the room.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sustainability. Ukraine. Dollar hedge. And the advantage counterplan.
Maybe 2 seconds on this one. Politics, then dollar hedge.
Politics, dollar hedge. Yes.
I'm cool.
Okay. Gaza escalates. Our evidence is the most recent, citing military officials. None of the negative evidence assumes Iran, which means it's escalating now. Rationality is wrong because of use-or-lose pressures, and we assume all of the violent wars, but cites military officials. Capitalist growth is unsustainable and causes wars. It funds war chest, guarantees resource wars. That's Robinson, McKellian, quotes. Russia had trade ties with Ukraine, but sacrificed it all, which answers their cut about interdependence. Reject generic defense. We have an approximate reason for conflict. Capitalism actively tries to break down trade and weaponize sanctions to dominate smaller countries, which circumvents theoretical evidence about trade-solving conflict and impact turns the dollar hedge disadvantage. Drop modeling solves impact both disadvantages because adversaries become socialist friends. That's attitude, conceit, environment, defense, outgoing for innovation was not a straight turn because they drop uniqueness. Innovation is low now. Ukraine. The overview is wrong. We're faster and get to Russia. Gaza's escalating now. No turns case. The war has been thumb for 2 years. The U.S. is insulated from Ukraine. Won't pass. Johnson ousting Israel provisions, immigration, FISA, and Trump swap uniqueness. That's Litis. None of their cards assume Israel. They're all far too old. Want to see Habercourt agrees Johnson will not pass the Senate bill, so the bill must change, which will delay the process and means no passage. Insert yellow. Edmondson says the far-right Republicans will boo Johnson, so he won't bring it to the floor. Boston Globe concludes Affirmative says that passage fails, no discharge position, and it's entirely speculative. Zenginger says Trump fights Ukraine aid, so Republicans will never come aboard. Insert all of those. The rest of the cards are far too old to be considered. Iran means that it will not pass. Insert 414. Johnson ironically who puts the Senate package on the floor despite mounting pressure after Iran struck against Israel. It's compounded by the fixation for around 15 Republican bill showing support for Israel. Exactly for aid remains unclear as Congress remains divided. Dems called on a Senate package behind conservatives urging against attaching increasing the number of Republicans that oppose faces significant threat to his speakership. EU solves prefer evidence post dates by 3 months. It's 2 times larger than the aid their evidence talks about. Ukraine form 4-7 so to be confident NATO will fund Ukraine so trying to implement 100 billion. We need to build a defense to deter aggression. Military support is vital to repel Russia. They say Europe plus knows it will pass. Most recent evidence counting for 6 so to be putting sanctions behind the final push to shore of Ukraine. This is not Trump proving this is Europe coming to grips with the idea that Europe has got to step up. No escalation. Article 5 and MAD ensures Russia doesn't expand. That's Carson. Rationality applies more to Russia because they are an established country. Assumes spillover effects and alliance. Slava is done for 4 months. Which proves no escalation credibility. It's wrong. Demetrius 24. Ukraine will fight without assistance. Seems to believe U.S. failure will avoid it. This is not how credible the U.S. chooses. In Ukraine, it tells us that how China, Iran, or Russia was to attack NATO. Greece can counter U.S. activities in all crisis. And the same states we have heard it before. Troops like Vietnam and Afghanistan will deploy and will pass based on Ukraine. Down ahead. Ukraine, JCPOA, North Korea disprove and means sanctions cannot deter adversaries cross-sectors embarrassing sanctions fail. 19. Sanctions often fail 170 cases, concluded 1/3 attaining objectives, estimated success with lower than 5% hitting. Product records demonstrated process NPT entered in force 4 countries trying nukes, nuclear, while under sanctions. Perception card is solved by the app. It's about U.S. aggression, which only we resolve through socialism. That's their highlighting and also done on case. Except 1. Their links are about financial crisis, which is unsustainable and will collapse. That's Geneva. They say growth strong now. No evidence is specific to the banking sector or financial crisis, which is the threshold they must win to have uniqueness for the leak. No link to leak dodging. I did not say we don't nationalize, but that the leak was not about nationalization. Extend that the economy is unsustainable. Unemployment, lack of innovation, and banking. 22. Shadow banking on mind banking, not subject to restrictions, engage in activities often obstruct traditional firms by price supervision and accountability cannot see balance activities, nor do what firms are participate or assets investing, market investing. Bailouts make shadow banks too big to fail, guarantee endless speculation, 22 unmet neutrality, avoiding offended political disputes, people holding assets, defendants by experience of what's from renew, demand and liquidity, affects large and quick markets were substantially in response to news to provide credit, vested interest in survival, markets expect further investments. Captify is thumb, no impact to it, it's inevitable, and exit taxes solves. Greenberg 16, it is easy for a U.S. company to change location. 20 companies use this maneuver and Mauritius requires any company says domestic require companies to pay an exit tax. US dollar hedging economic strength is bad, causes frontal nuclear war with Russia and China. The Twin Sea should have read evidence to answer an impact turn. They didn't know. Neutral evidence turns interdependence, cooperation, as well as currency wars. US dominance decreases trade. Sanctions, withdrawal from WHO, Arms Control and Security Council vetoes approved, which increases the chance of war with no core Iran and China. Russia, that's Ross and Liu, they conceded the thesis of Ross that only the United States is aggressive, which means that they use dollar hegemony for bad. Sanctions are bad. Supremacy 23. Sanctions are not working in Iran is the leading example. Korea failed to prevent proliferation. Venezuela, sanctions have devastating impacts, exacerbating crisis. Russia, economy of Brazil, Somalia, sanctions contribute to the deaths of 250,000 in Cuba have no chance of compelling Azerbaijan draws in Russia. Yes, causality. There's no yes lead differential and yes uniqueness. The United States is key and escalates now. Here's 23. Azerbaijan invade Armenia in the near future must send a strong message to not take action on agreements become toothless. Study of called on Armenia to establish quarter threatening by force. The impact defense is outdated. Our most recent evidence says that invasion is likely now and atrocious. Russia challenging impact defense is unresponsive. It's not about the effect on the climate, but rather that it's weaponized and used for conflicts. Not about resource conflict, but rather China and the United States will weaponize it against China to attack their country.
Right there. the dollar hedge decide. The dollar hedge decide, the Ukraine decide, the advantage. Yeah, the advantage counterplan.
So-
Advantage counterplan, the advantage.
Yeah. Everyone good to go? Peninsula good?
Yeah.
Cool. I'll start. Super easy negative balance this debate. The link is massive and our scenario accesses every single impact scenario that the app has gone for this debate. We have defense to all of their offense, but they do not have sufficient defense to ours, especially the link. The magnitude of the link is how you should filter this debate, and you know it's huge. I'll extend the impact to the top. Dollar depreciation sparks global war by undermining geoeconomic leverage and tape necessary to suppress the hostile escalation sanctions effectiveness is crucial to contain Iran and North Korea, two flashpoints that rapidly go nuclear, turns the entirety of their scenario. Dollar depreciation prevents the U.S. from helping out in Gaza, which causes conflict escalation causes conflict to escalate further and emboldens new conflicts because the U.S. is no longer seen as a geopolitical power. Now, framing issue for the link, it's much faster than the plan and was dropped. The perception of the plan happening is enough to freak out investors and causes capital flight to other countries. That means which means that you only prioritize it over any big case push that the two-era goes for. I'm gonna first answer the recession and debate. They cannot go for this. They conceded the Baker and Carter evidence that says their evidence conflates downturns with recessions. Even if business cycles come around and end in downturns, economic recessions do not happen unless there is a fundamental imbalance in the economy, which happens through external shocks to the economy, which was a conceded warrant out of the 2NC. A slew of economists believe inevitable recessions are a myth, but our evidence suggests that even if a recession were to emerge, it would be mild and give business leaders time to adjust. They read a new card. They also read a new card saying sanctions are bad. There's no terminal impact listed in the evidence, but new cards justify new answers. The perception of decline causes immediate lash out nuclear war that starts in 14. Struggle of your recession, dollar hegemony may become World War III, and leads to desperation will lead us to World War, which goes nuclear with Russia and China, where the dollar falls down. Even considering the tipping point has been reached, any nation did not use the dollar. It's hit with economic sanctions, that's just where bonds start dropping. It causes short-term China war and green lights adventurism that should have Wilson 20. Were USD to actually collapse, the world would go through capitalism that leads to massive war. China would go to military war. Asia would fare horribly. The entire nation would instantly crash the dark time for blood extinction. That's wing 19. PRC challenged the United States the primacy to replace the international order and security. PRC seeks an overall of nation states, a government to address Islamic states, equality, devastating terrorism. China is that us with the LAO consolidation is anchored in the belief that following with spellation, rise up ending Westphalia and rejecting civilization. The U.S. will face a war and a WMD. The power not stop conceding the world unless trying to get Americans all nation and peace. All press on the PRC. Now the men on evidence, it does not assume the Baker and Carter evidence how the system is still overall sustainable. Their evidence does not say that. It does not say how banks is shadow banking is an independent warrant for collapse itself. The collapse itself. Now the next argument that they made is capital flight is dumb. Capital flight is obviously not dumb. They cannot go for this when they conceded uniqueness about dollar hegemony being high now in our link scenario, which means that our evidence is about how banks being nationalized would cause people to move their assets into other countries because they would freak out immediately if the plan would happen. Their evidence is not about that. The exit tax solves stuff. Non-starter. The exit tax does not solve because it's still a massive amount of money that would move away from the banks and new assets that goes away from the U.S. economy that would be moved to other economies. The exit tax is just a small portion of that, which means that it definitely would not solve. The last argument is the dollar hegemony, economic strength, and frontal nuclear war stuff. That was answered, but that's answered below by all the sanctions are bad, or that's answered by the sanctions are bad cards because that was the impact turn. Case. Actually, Ukraine. Concede Ukraine aid fails. Concede Europe fills it, and credibility theories wrong. Not going for it. Advantage counterplay. Add on a 0-1 uniqueness or evidence says communists are aiming for peace talks. That should be sufficient. Or the app fails 2. Linker differential plan is socialism. The add requires communism. Drop 3. Thumb. Azerbaijan has been aggressive for years with no escalation. That's the ugly red and the one in dark. Advantage. The only thing I really need to win is that the capitalism reduces war. Obviously, winning this, which also takes out the Gaza scenario, which they've gone for because they've dropped a couple independent warrants. 1, interdependence, market cooperation makes escalation impossible because economic prosperity is dependent on being peaceful with other countries. That's Zittelman. 2, arms industry. The war for profit is amid defense spending is declining and not the reason why nations escalate. 3, empirics, the post-peaceful era, post-war. World War II is the capitalist age. Even if proxy conflicts have occurred between non-capitalist nations, overwhelming trust proof capitalism is conflict empty. That's the Zittelman. It's 4, freedom rule. 4, freedom rule. Capitalist countries are socialized towards law-mediated relations powers are less incentivized to be imperialist under capitalism because it would destroy the market structure. The Ukraine war is wrong. Russia invaded because they're revisionist. The sanction stuff is impact evolved default to us. Zittelman cites numerous studies from political science and history professors that says because capitalism systematically lowers the risk of war. The only answer to the Gaza scenario was that their evidence posted is obviously not true. The plan it definitely can't solve. Robin says that the reason the U.S. gets involved is because of the alliance with Israel. They'll leave it intact. Drop to an escalation. There's zero incentive for any side to get drawn in wreck the U.S. economy and draw us into a pointless proxy of conflict. Same goes for Russia and China. Both countries are bogged down. 3 official statements. Our 1NC evidence is from yesterday and cites official statements and expert analysis that says the U.S. will not back Israel even after the Iran strike. The sanctions are not conflict driving, even if it inflames some proxy conflicts. And a slew of they've dropped a slew of nuclear scenarios that dollar hedge is key to deter, which they've dropped. Also dropping the link means that time frame obviously comes first, conceded from the 2NC.
459.
Geoengineering causes extinction. The Soviet evidence says that it causes global nuclear conflagration and competition between every single great power, which makes global nuclear conflagration inevitable. This is dropped in the Ternary, and even if it was light in 1 year, it was dropped, which means it is certain. Countries will weaponize geoengineering tools like CDR and DAC and turn them into a weapon to modify weathers in other countries and to make escalation uniquely likely. Even our evidence says that even non-state actors could get their hands on these weapons, which causes miscalculation and nuclear war. This is certain, it's 100%, which means any risk of defense to the disadvantage is reasonable. Time frame does not outweigh because they have no turns case analysis about geoengineering. Socialism alone is sufficient to solve because the profit is no longer driving our climate decisions. Then it means that we'll no longer be incentivized to develop these dangerous technologies, which Brunner evidence says capitalism drives. You should prioritize probability because if extinction is inevitable, that means that even a faster time frame impact does not matter since extinction is locked in its status quo, and a low probability impact of a fast time frame does not matter since you're not certain it causes extinction. So just because something is fast doesn't mean you should vote for it. Case. At the top, they've conceded that we solved the disadvantage and not the other way around. They've conceded that Ettinger evidence explicitly extended in 1 AR, which says that every single country models the United States. The Ettinger evidence says that our economic tools will be used to shape trade policies, which ensures that adversaries like China and Russia get on board. This argument was conceded, so you must grant it full weight. It means that there's no chance of wars with our adversaries because they've considered that all of them become socialists, which obviously means that everyone will cooperate and there's no incentive to full war because they'll place social and ecological value above profit. Now, we'll concede that all of the other arguments are largely irrelevant because they've conceded that we straight turn interdependence, cooperation, peace. What? And that'll also be further on the discount, which means that we straight turn all of the warrants, none of it gets to nuclear war, and will explicitly concede defense that, quote, Russia and China are bogged down now, end quote, which means that they will not get involved in Gaza. This takes out their impact scenario because it means that our adversaries are not aggressive. It means that they're bogged down and they do not have the military capacity to escalate against other countries. The only chance for escalation is the geoengineering stuff and a risk of miscalculation or Russian and Chinese fears of loss of dominance or fears of loss of multipolarity. The dollar hedge this time. At the top, only growth-driven expansion and US dollar hegemony causes US-Russia war. That outweighs per their four-core evidence in 1 NR because only those two countries have bombs large enough to cause extinction. That means you strike every other impact about North Korea and China off your flow. They've only extended an argument. They have not extended an argument about Russia in the 2 NR. The United States is revisionist, dropped. Adversaries are not. It's empirically proven. US dominance bullies other countries through sanctions, withdrawal from the WHO and arms control, and Security Council vetoes prove the US is not trying to defend the world order, but to dominate it, which increases the chance of, quote, nuclear war with adversaries, including Russia and China. That is the Tracy Ross evidence, which they've conceded in every single speech that we read on the case page. They've also conceded that the straight turns interdependence because when the United States has more sanctions power and has stronger dollar hegemony, they weaponize trade. They do trade wars with China and they decrease trade. There's two implications. One, retrenchment solves any impact. Only the turn solves the perception argument in their Ternary card. Drops it's about US aggression through the dollar hedge decline, which only socialism can restrain because the United States will no longer try to expand its military-industrial complex. That is the Robinson evidence. Two, this link outweighs the link. Direct US aggression is a much larger cause of interdependence breakdown because it directly threatens China, which straight turns the war arguments on case. Dropped. China is not revisionist. One, China has not shot a single bullet in 30 years, settled nearly all of its land borders favorably to neighbors, and engages in international organizations. Two, their cards all cite LAO violations, but the US is worse, mined Nicaragua's ports, blockaded Cuba, and hasn't even signed on to UNCLOS, and it's excusable because it's just trying to maintain security in their neighborhood. That is the Ross evidence. It zaps their offense. The turnout chose to just read cards and not extend them or make arguments about whether hedge is good or bad. Do not do the work for them. Their only card that comes closest to weighing evidence, but it only supports the idea that China wants limited expansion in SCS in Taiwan, which Ross assumes. We link turned out because the US accommodates them in the near abroad and allows them to expand. There's no scenario for escalation because the US will not get drawn in. The Wilson evidence has no cause and cites no empirics. They drop credibility theories incorrect on the Ukraine decide, which means that a decline in US dollar hegemony does not cause our adversaries nor our allies to be scared. That is the Demetrius evidence. This means that all of the time frame analysis is irrelevant because it's not applied to disadvantage, and we've impact turned to impact, which means that the faster the time frame, the better for us. They've independently considered sanctions are bad, they destabilize countries. In 170 cases, they were only successful less than 5% of the time. That is a Hakiman evidence. In Iran, Korea, Venezuela, Somalia, and Cuba, they all got nuclear weapons anyways, they all became more unstable anyways, and none of them obeyed the sanctions, which means sanctions cannot solve their internal link, but it only has a chance of making countries more aggressive, which makes war more likely.
Can I get a card, Doc?
Yeah.
I'll forget.
Okay, I think we're ready to go. Congratulations to both teams for making it to finals. The decision is a 3-0 for the affirmative from Peninsula. So I took the longest, and I'd say that this is a relatively close debate. I ultimately kind of decide that the dollar hedge versus cap good, cap bad is America, the revisionist power versus the aggressor, or in a world of, say, let's a significantly reduced military capacities impacting the military-industrial complex or confidence in pushing out and doing violent things abroad. I think just lining up the cards, very close debate. I do think, structurally speaking, the 2&R is a little further behind, where you do have to read 3 cards, which requires me to do a lot of the, I think, evidence analysis. And I do tend to err, I think, more in the direction of some of the 2AR arguments about what that requires in terms of potential judge intervention. And so I think that this is less of maybe a 2&R issue and more of a kind of block strategy approach, and how to apply, I think, more pressure on the basic thesis of the affirmative in terms of original evidence. And so I think if that evidence is read earlier and you're provided the opportunity to do more of the comparative analysis on whether or not US is a good actor in the end, can mitigate conflict, then I do think that you're in a better place. I spent a lot of time before reading the evidence and questioning whether or not I thought the geoengineering argument that they made kind of a clear we solve geoengineering kind of claim, and whether or not that is as great of a predictable kind of add-on of sorts. I think that that's somewhat hazy. However, the way that they've highlighted their evidence, I think it kind of jumps out in that instance where if the power players, in this instance, the bad actor like the United States, is clearly highlighted within the evidence. And so I do think it's a little bit more predictable than I had given it original credence, and was a fairly solid extension by the 2AR. I think, I would have been maybe persuaded about some of your defense. If climate change isn't that bad, then why would we deploy things like geoengineering in the first place in the context of trying to mitigate climate change and some of the applications towards that? And so I am a little bit, somewhat skeptical about that extension, but I thought, Peninsula was, it seems like they've done this probably before, and so they thought about this. Interesting move in terms of the 2AR. Obviously frustrating, I think, probably from a 2&R perspective. One of the solid things that I think you go for in the 2&R is like, we have a magnitude of a link, so you're drastically going to change the American economy, or in this instance, dollar hegemony. And that's kind of the bottom of the 2&R, so magnitude of the link is going to overwhelm, and you kind of conflate the link magnitude versus the impact itself. And I think just spending more time describing what a collapse of dollar hegemony would mean, and how China and Russia would be revisionist powers, take advantage of the vacuum of power and potentially escalate conflict and war, would have been just a better kind of storytelling aspect. Now that is somewhat in the cards that you read, but I also think it's somewhat in the original thesis of the cards that are both in the block as well as the 1 in C. And so more descriptions of just how destabilizing that would be, and potentially even more cards about how that could destabilize Europe as a power, for example. It doesn't necessarily just have to be, US dollar hedge is the only thing that matters. If it destabilizes, let's say, the economy of the Europe powers and they start fighting each other, because they're still capitalist and not socialist, could be an additional, maybe internal link to escalatory conflict that would essentially it's in your card. You know, it talks about World War III, but you just have to tell me how you get there, because they have some defensive arguments about how we just wouldn't get to that exact point. I don't zero out the disadvantage. I do think there's a risk if I vote affirmative that World War III very well could happen, but I also think that there's a risk that the geoengineering aspect could happen, and the U.S. ultimately, both as an aggressor that causes a lot of problems globally, but if our maybe dollar hegemony in our economy drastically goes down, that we might be more of a peaceful actor and people will just get along. And so it's not 100% either way, but the better debating on the impact side of things, I think, is the team that gets the final rebuttal, and I know, that's very frustrating. But, congratulations to both teams. It was a fairly solid debate.
I can go next. So I basically voted AF on the Ross card, or the impact turn to dollar hedge. So the geoengineering thing, I don't think you get it. I stopped flowing at America weaponizes it against China, which is it's pretty close to enough of an impact, but I just thought it was just under what I would consider kind of a full impact. And then the case stuff. So the 2AR pivot on it gets modeled, which causes global peace. It's one, it's kind of relying on a ton of spin. I'm not sure how much of it's in the 1AR, but the bigger thing is I think the 2NR definitely extends that capitalist countries are more peaceful, and then also non-capitalist countries are more imperialist and go to war with each other more often. That doesn't take out, or I don't think that the U.S. hedge bad stuff takes that out, because you've made an argument about how one capitalist country is acting, but I didn't think that this stuff was it didn't get to nuclear war or anything. So I didn't think it was gonna outweigh, but I just thought that the pivot on case was kind of weird too. So the big problem for UC Lab is you guys didn't have defense to revisionism. So even when you read 3 new cards in the 2NR to answer this impact turn, none of them are defense. You just kind of tried to answer their impact turn with more offense. And so I thought that they had enough defense to your stuff that it meant that the Ross impact turn, which I thought was pretty high risk, outweighed. So the geoeconomic leverage suppresses hotspots like Iran and NOCO, which is the top of the 2NR argument. I'm pretty sure I think geoeconomic leverage is basically talking about sanctions. I think that the card that they have that's sanctions have always failed is pretty substantial mitigation. The Jorgeston card, or so the perceptions argument, I think it basically is about U.S. elites influencing the U.S. to be aggressive and start currency wars if they think their power is slipping. So I think Peninsula's answer, which is we solve that because we get rid of U.S. elites, works. And then the last thing is the China scenario. So it's I think, well, so one is I think the Wilson card is bad, but I was thinking about it, and it's well, if the 2NR reads a new bad card, the 2AR should probably have to say it's bad, right? I think you guys didn't. You didn't talk about this China scenario thing. So I was okay, so there's probably I should, there's a conceded China thing. And so I was thinking about what's the least arbitrary way to figure out, what's more important, this Ross stuff or this China war stuff. And I thought it was the Peninsula extends this US-Russia war outweighs on magnitude because they have the most nuclear bombs. So that was kind of the tiebreaker that I thought really sealed the deal. So that's how I voted.
Yeah, I think I was quicker for a couple of reasons, and I think a lot of it has to do with the sort of technical concessions that the are down first. Drop modeling on a case page means all countries become socialist, means there's no risk of blackout. I think they cited Ellinger evidence that is the Christian instead of the war. Next is a concession that Russia and China are too bogged down. I mean, won't have an incentive or be too bogged down in war. I mean, there's no risk of a quick China war if the thing takes out your sort of card you're reading the 2NR. I think the credit theory argument means American withdrawal from the economic sector. It cites Ukraine, which tells us when the United States withdraws economically, it tells us a little about authoritative powers, how they react to it. All those things mean that there's very, very, very low risk of the disaster, even though I think the magnitude of the link argument you're making that is pretty smart. The biggest problem for you is the cross-sex of the 2NC and the sanctions conversation. It gets real problematic real fast.
Yeah.
And I think because you don't have a good enough card that can say that sanctions are able to cap war, I think Peninsula is doing a way better job. Sanctions fail, can't cap war, or stop adversaries from getting the bomb, besides Iran, North Korea. says adversarial countries have responded the opposite way of getting the bomb. And the two impact cards you were citing in the 2 and C, and the 2 and R, you're just like, our sanctions argument takes us out. It both cites the sanctions are the reason for why war would never start. Peninsula has re-highlighted the part of the card that says, if sanctions do not work, bombs start drawing, which means it means war is inevitable because they are ahead on sanctions failing now, which means all the good work you're doing on the late term goes away because probability takes all that out. And there's not a great turns case that's pronounced argument. All this means that there's only a risk that the ad can stop U.S. aggression on 1 yard and 2 yard. I think are correct in pointing out that their evidence is about the dollar emboldening the U.S. to engage in authoritarian actions. The geoengineering stuff barely scant in the 1 AR, I suppose, but I'll grant you loss, which is enough of an impact to be able to outweigh. And then the 2 and C sort of says nothing about my all this means that extinction is inevitable in a world where we're a non-socialist country or world and only have to get us to a safe space. So that's how I believe.
I guess a couple of questions. Time frame probably just went away because of, like, for most of you, just because the risk of the dissent was already low. So, like, the link didn't matter as much because.
That and, like, extinction is already in war.
Okay.
So, like, probability. Like, the one thing I wrote down on my flow was like, I wonder if extinction is inevitable now is what Peninsula will go for, which means probability is extinction is inevitable, means your time period doesn't really matter. And that's literally part of what this layer says.
Yeah.
No, I still think the time frame argument is fine. You just need to describe the portions of your evidence about how China and Russia will fill in and do a better job at kind of that revisionism debate. So.
I guess the Ross evidence, how did you evaluate, like, the arguments about path of solving, like, nuclear war? Does that, like, the 2-hour extension of that? Because just how did you evaluate?
I think this is a bit of my preference in how evidence operates. You kind of cite solves war. They do a little bit more analysis plus the evidence. I tend to err more on who provides reasons why that's true. You say interdependence, but they read evidence that also says the U.S. potentially is more aggressive because we have more weapons, we're going to do some things. And maybe then they have an argument that says that the U.S. would go towards the Vietnam syndrome and collaborate with other countries. Those are competing claims. I don't know which one is ultimately more correct, and you need to provide me with reasons why your argument is more correct. Why is yours historically more correct than theirs? And that's the part of argumentation that I think is missing.
I thought it was like, so you have evidence that says, like, broadly capitalism reduces the risk of war. They have evidence that says the U.S. like currently has a political strategy where it like acts aggressive and destabilizes things. I don't think those two things contradict. Now it's like some of the warrants from the like cap reduces war card could be defense to the Ross turn, but I think Peninsula's do so, like, you know, interdependence. But Peninsula's like, no, like the U.S. uses economic might to like weaponize interdependence by like using its sanctions. So I just didn't think that like the capitalism reduces war stuff really was responsive to like the hedge funds.
Great job. Yep. See you soon somewhere.
What do you think would be a better answer to that? Like the revisionism stuff?
Yeah, it would have been that, or like, I don't know if there's some card that's like capitalist that like I don't know, I guess you would need a card that's like if America, so like their card is like if America thinks that it's weak, it tries to like cooperate, and then when they think they're strong, they try to like bully other countries. If you had a card that was like America becomes more peaceful when it's more powerful, that would get you something. It's like I don't know, like I think this Ross card is like really good. Like I mean, it's like from MR Online, but like it says all the things you needed to say. You know what I mean? And it's like also like there aren't really that many hedge good cards that are like hedge makes America peaceful. You know what I mean? It's all about like hedge makes Russia and China peaceful. So like it's tricky, but like you need to. I mean, yeah, just like America's not revisionist, or like, you know, other people are more revisionist and worse. Like that type of stuff, I think would be the, you know, easiest way.
I also think the other thing is just having some broad sweeping cards about how the world is net more peaceful over the last 100 years. Some of those like broad arcing U.S. hegemony cards help frame that debate better. So yeah, I mean the U.S. does violent stuff and it kills a lot of people, but you know, so is history over the last, you know, over civilization, right? And so if you have the comparative uniqueness claim where it's just like this is the most peaceful era post World War II, LIO, et cetera, that frames the debate. And then you could say their cards could be right that the U.S. commits some violence, but it net reduces conflict in the end.
I was kind of agree with everything they said, but I think the one kicker for me is the best example of how capitalism can ensure peace would have to be something like economic sanctions, meaning you never have to actually shoot bullets because the sanctions themselves would be able to stop countries from going to war, or would not cause the United States to have to pick up their guns and start going to war. So if you have really good examples of just like the U.S. can engage in economic activities to be able to restrain conflict whenever they enter a war, and you use that as analysis, then maybe you can do some cap stuff like trade, interdependence, economic sanctions. All these things mean the U.S. never have to go to war. It means there's no risk in a capitalist world of war. Then maybe. But I think, I'll just say for myself, given the debate, it's a little ugly, unless you read a lot more cards in that question.
Next question I had was the blue evidence, the last card that was read on the dollar hedge dissent. Do you think we needed to read cards against it? Because, I mean, the poverty portion of it I thought was answered by the impact defense that was read on case, and then the war stuff I thought was answered by Capsol's work. Do you think we should have read cards there?
I didn't look at the loot card, so I'm pulling it up right now.
I think you should have read cards.
Okay.
And that sort of relied on the two cards you've read, because I think the two cards you read don't help you as much as they do, because one, they're about sanctions working. I would have read more cards just like dollar hedge do it, dollar hedge solves, dollar hedge restrains, things of that nature. Because it would have at least forced Peninsula if they want to go for the impact turn, they have to read more cards in the 1AR, except the 1AR just like using against the pieces, so that became problematic.
I don't think this card, I don't think this card says war.
I think it's great.
Yeah, I think this card is like pretty bad. So I think you could have just said it was bad.
Yeah, that's what's
It's like what you did. I just think it's like they have an impact turn on another page
Yeah.
that applied that you should have read cards about.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I guess in the world of, were there any cross apps that the 2NR could have made to like answer the, assuming like we hadn't read the cards and the Ross evidence was still at play, was there any cross apps I could have made to answer the Ross stuff based off cards that were made or that were read, or like it's just a question of reading other cards like what we were talking about?
Hard for me to say. I should say to read more cards.
Okay.
I can't think of a cross out that's jumping out of my head right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Was this the right 2NR?
I mean, it's hard to say because there were a bunch of arguments on politics and
Yeah.
the dollar hedge DA. I thought this was the right 2NR, but it's maybe if I looked at it for an hour, it's maybe that could, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was I thought it was the right one, but it's kind of, inches. It's I didn't think there was a massive,
Yeah. No,
I think you don't necessarily need cross applications against the loot card. I think just some basic defensive arguments. This is from 2009. It's post financial crisis. The United States economic strength is strong. That's across the board. U.S. dollar hedge, things are fine. If this was true, collapse would have already happened. Empirically false. And your sustainability stuff, maybe that you had towards case, would have also been the cross application. I don't think this card's great. The loot card.
sorry, just a question because I think I'm just misunderstanding the Ross evidence. Do you guys mind explaining why the cap solves war argument is not responsive to this?
it's this card is basically a hedge bad card, and then the internal link is U.S. economic strength is the internal link to hedge. So cap can solve war, and U.S. hedge can be bad. I don't know why. Like I said, there might be some warrant. So the most obvious warrant from the cap good stuff that could be defense to this is interdependence, but it's I think Peninsula answered that. I don't know what else in the cap stuff is supposed to answer this.
I feel like the Robinson card is more important from the 1AC, in my mind, about how cap drives conflict. And this is where I'm saying if I line up card for card, I think the Robinson card's pretty persuasive. It doesn't have to deal directly with Israel or Gaza, but the rest of the claims that are in there about the profit-driven drive to create conflict and war is just inherent within the system, I don't think you have a direct response to that. And they do a better job at talking about it. You say, look at our cards. Even if I compare your cards to their cards, I think that internal warrant is not being responded to.
It seems like none of you all really pulled the trigger on the geoengineering thing. So instead of that, where should the 2AR have?
I included it as a tiebreaker to make it easier for my decision. I don't know if they did, but I was highly skeptical going in until I read the evidence to then figure out whether or not I thought it was predictable. Because you all don't do a great job in the top of the 1AR or even the 2AC saying this is an add-on rather than just offense against the counterplan.
I kind of the same. I thought it was a bit of a tiebreaker, but I think two ends are that sort of does a little bit better job commentary or just saying you not really saying enough words or things. Probably won't get there for me. It's just sort of like in absence of a response by the 2AR, it's just like, okay, I guess I'll give the 2AR some sufficient. Like that was the whole like Russia-US war stuff, right? So that's why I was like, yeah, that's enough for me. That could be a full jury.
Was your question like what should the 2AR have spent time on other than the geoengineering thing?
Yeah, or for you specifically, what kind of 2AR have to look at?
Like, I'm not going to give you the exact words, but it's just like you should make your like say that the geoengineering scenario gets to like extinction level war before you explain the internal link. Basic. I mean, it's kind of like I don't know. It's just like literally like I stopped flowing it. It gets weaponized against China, and then I was thinking it's like, well, okay. The other thing is like I just don't think the geoengineering thing was that important of a piece in this debate for other reasons. Like I don't know, you know, like it's probably smaller magnitude than like the Russia war stuff. Probably like you know what I mean. But it's like I lost my train of thought. But the other thing I was going to say is like it's not like the 2AR spent that much time on it. So the question is like what else could I have spent time on? It's like I don't know, you know, spend more time talking about hegemony. Like it wasn't like a big deal.
Cool. Congrats.
Thank you. Oh yeah, that's true. That actually kind of matched out. Yeah, yeah, it's a freeway first.